And Peter is here already. Peter, how are you?
Hi there. Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Of course, thank you for joining us, and we are moving forward. And Peter, please, would you be able to share your presentation? You can use share button. We're going to talk about the Earth Coop project, correct?
Earth Co-op, yeah.
Coop, yes. Thank you so much. So please share with us.
Okay, yeah, sure. Thank you. I was invited here today to talk about the Earth Co-op project by LCE, who came across the proposal a few months ago, and they decided that it was something that they needed to pursue and aligned with their own vision and strategy. And obviously, what you're trying to do there in LCE to engage and transform 10,000 cities is no small undertaking. And one of the things that Earth Co-op really talks about is investing in infrastructure and infrastructure for cooperative working. So, a little bit about myself first before I go into that in too much depth. Little fun fact, I invented the first triple-decker bus in the world about 20 years ago. There are several of them now, but this was the first. Um, there was a double-decker bus, obviously, and I put a deck on its roof around hot air balloon festivals and various different events, and ended up at Glastonbury and things like that. And the bizarre fact was that after my father passed away, I understood that he also had a double-decker bus and served teas and coffees at Horse. That was a bit weird. I didn't know that he actually owned a double decker bus. So that's just a weird fun fact. I've been a sailing instructor for 7 years, and then I became a tech entrepreneur. I founded an IT company back in the days where animation was a big thing, and that was BusyNet Solutions. Ended up with a team of 10 and turning over around 350,000 a year. Uh, I also set up a different company that was focused on WordPress development, and we developed hundreds of WordPress websites. From there, I ended up getting into social tech and the idea of localize, which was to create a local resource management system, which was all about understanding what have we got locally that we can work with, understanding those assets and resources that we've got that are largely invisible so that we can make social and environmental progress. And that sort of evolved into a section of that project, which was around local democracy back in 2008, when people were saying that local democracy was the answer to local and global issues. And when you engage people around local democracy, most people are very disenfranchised in one way or another. I built a local democracy participatory budgeting and community organizing platform, and began the process of rolling that out and raised 350,000 on a crowdfunder as a social enterprise using a bond instrument a couple of years ago. So, an Earth Co-op really is a combination of the social enterprise projects, localize and vocalize, but with sort of much wider remit and a social container to take it forward as well. So not just the technology, but the co-op to engage people and organizations. So moving on, I'll just read out the general mission statement because I can't probably do that better. So it's a social cooperating system. The idea is really to invest in infrastructure to enable people to engage, organizations to engage in discovering, adapting, and replicating the best solutions that exist. Obviously, we're all doing that already, but there is a huge amount of opportunity to be able to scale up and improve the mechanism by which we do that. So the idea is to enable the co-creation of a social system capable of supporting waves of coordinated action around proven and adaptable high impact solutions, driven by empowering disenfranchised people within society, bring about social and environmental well-being. So I won't go into any more of that on that slide. We're going to go into this in detail anyway. Essentially, we're at the very beginning of this project. We have a core team that have evolved through members of LCE, kindly helping to incubate this, and that's where we're at the moment. Looking to essentially create the business and financial planning aspect of that over the next few months, and then to grow a diverse membership, as it says there, largely with social enterprises and charitable organisations initially, because they share a very similar mission globally, but are still largely working in silo to achieve that mission. So there's a huge opportunity for those organisations to work together to co-create a common framework that helps them to achieve the mission. And then to launch an MVP platform, we'd see that platform being a platform that already exists, hopefully, and there are lots that are in this social space that have made really good progress. There is one for Open, which is madeopen.co.uk, and they are doing tens of thousands of hours of time banking as an example, and already working with local councils in the country. So that's an example of the type of platform we could sort of leapfrog into this cooperating infrastructure. But there are probably lots of others as well. So moving on. Yeah, just to go back just there, just to say, yeah, the Earth Cooperative, the idea there is that it would be a multi-stakeholder cooperative, and that social enterprises and charities would be one layer of that other layers of the cooperative would be impact entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs that are jumping up and down because they've solved a problem, they've maybe cleaned up the waters, they've maybe purified the air in a certain place, maybe they've regenerated soil or local communities or built social fabric, and they figured out how to solve these problems, yet they don't have any funding to be able to scale their solution and for their solution to be discovered globally. There's a huge amount of energy there with those entrepreneurs to be able to try to scale their solutions. And then with the local, regional, and national governments who are all trying to achieve sort of net zero, they're trying to create their climate emergency plans and their social governance proposals and strategies. And then, really, lastly, citizens. There are so many citizens, as we know, that want to engage, but don't necessarily know how to do that in an effective manner. Again, sort of reiterate, there is no infrastructure for them to engage in. There is no app really that you can download that would enable this sort of collaborative working globally on high impact solutions. So I'm going to, how could LCE support? Well, they've already started supporting in terms of building that core team. That's what we're doing at the moment. We are looking for some other members with other skills too. And then to collaborate really about refining a route map, strategic route map to market, refining the business plan, and essentially to become investment ready. Then obviously we need to pitch for investment and support the rollout in an iterative and agile manner. So just to flick through some of the slides that I usually use around the core messages, we already have the solutions, as many of us are aware. We can spend hours and days talking about the inspiring solutions that are out there. So really the challenge is not coming up with new solutions. The challenge is replication. How do we master the art of replication? And this is something that our bodies are already really good at. And so there's going to be a large element of biomimicry in this project, really part of it understanding how our cells replicate proteins from DNA as an example. The DNA is obviously a compilation of templates for proteins. And in this essence, we're talking about compiling Earth DNA. What are the projects, the hundreds, if not thousands of projects that are needed to create a healthy planet. Once they're compiled in a directory, an ideas bank, and lots of people have already started to do that, then we can use AI to try to understand the problems that the local neighborhoods, local communities and areas have, and we can understand the health of a particular area by using a lot of open API data that exists. Once we understand the health of an area, OpenAI there can then essentially look at the solutions and make the best recommendation as to which solutions are going to most likely be successful in any particular area. And at that point, then we're starting to engage the citizens and the organizations that would be required to implement. Obviously, as many people are, we're trying to support the movement transition from silo working to collaborative working. In my current role in One Planet, oneplanet.com, I'm head of partnerships there, and I'm working with a lot of social enterprises and charities, and almost all of them are working in silo, even though they all have an almost identical mission, or very similar mission, around either climate or community engagement, environmental protection, to another. So there's a massive opportunity here to work with those organizations and create this infrastructure that's actually needed for. And ultimately, we're trying to move, the vision is to move to waves of coordinated action. We know that these projects, these amazing solutions are already being implemented, but can we see them being implemented in waves, like sprints? So there might be a 6-week sprint, for instance, around tree planting or around rooftop solar or around retrofitting. So if you imagine the world, like all the amazing projects that you can imagine, if you imagine them as dots lighting up, a bit like a Christmas tree, flashing lights in a pretty random array, and that random array starts to move to colored arrays where you're getting all the red lights on for a minute, all the blue lights on for a minute, all the green lights, and that's the sort of waves of action that this project would. So to go into a little bit more detail of the components, the idea of a co-operating system. We understand an operating system. Obviously, all our computers run on one of those, but as of yet, we have not built a social co-operating system that is capable of the coordinated action that we actually need to avoid six mass extinction that we are within. And we are going to go extinct if we don't up our game and if we don't improve the rate at which we scale the solutions that are already out there. So there's a whole range essentially of different apps, and most of them already exist, but as of yet they've not been pulled together into a cohesive whole, which I call. You'll be familiar with almost all of them. Strategic mapping is one of the first elements, which is what One Planet actually focuses on, just that specific element, which is what are people trying to do? What are the strategic plans that people already have? So that might be local councils, health boards, universities. Almost all organizations have a strategic plan of some kind or another, but we can't yet see it. So when you break down those strategic plans into bare components, you can start to see the commonality across all those strategic plans. That then becomes a framework for moving forward around those common actions and outcomes. Then we're into resource mapping. What resources exist at the local area? What are the brownfield sites, the greenfield sites, the material resources, the buildings, the people, those sorts of things. Then we can use open data, as I was saying before, the open APIs to understand the health of local areas. We know what the solutions are because we've compiled them into a bank. I've already put together a pilot project around that called inspirationhub.org.uk, which you can flag up on your screens if you wish. And then leveraging AI for social and environmental good to make those recommendations around which solutions are most likely to be successful in any particular area. Then we're off into waves of coordinated action. So rather than doing that in silo, each solution would have a specific date in a cycle. say every 6 weeks, and people would join. So they wouldn't just be meeting local people to implement it locally. They would be meeting people across the country, across the world who are doing a similar project, and to do that together. And that's the big learning point going forward. So I won't go into lots more detail there. But if you imagine it from a user perspective, there would be a new app. They would put their postcode into that app. It would show them their community, and then it would show them the health of their community. That's not something you can currently see almost anywhere. It would show them the soil quality, the air quality, the water quality, and the quality of the social fabric in their community. And they would likely be horrified because, as we know, 95%, not more, of rivers are essentially dead. There's virtually no life cycles left in our soils, maybe 40, 50. And the air quality in many places is well above the EU limits. So when people get to see that, hopefully they would be inspired to do something about it. They would click on an area that would interest them, let's say soil, and there they would then be presented with 2 or 3 solutions that can regenerate soil. They would click on one of those, say composting, and then they would be given a date, and the date would be the start of the next 6-week sprint where they are meeting local people and people all around the world, but they're held in that sprint where they can learn together, and they're going to be supported like a volunteer would be if they did. So hopefully then they have a good experience and they come back. So that's kind of the user experience of a citizen, and that's my presentation. So short and sharp and sweet, I hope, and open to questions. Thank you very much. Evelyn, good to see you here. Don't know whether you'd like to chip in anything.
Yes, thanks. Maybe you can stop sharing the screen and
Sure.
we can have more of a gallery view of people.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming out tonight, Peter. I was delighted to see you on the agenda because I didn't realize that after our more recent meeting that you would be able to make the Emerge-a-thon. We've had some really interesting presentations all day. I've actually stayed on from the beginning.
You must be exhausted.
And I've had to take little sort of bio breaks and do some stretching exercises, and I did manage in one spot to do a quick walk around the block.
You've got a lot of Red Bull today?
No, just not, no.
No.
All relatively healthy consumption and libation. But earlier today we had on Tim Olson, who has been working on a project. He knows Ollie. So remember the other day we were talking about Ollie Sylvester Bradley. And I saw Ollie actually yesterday on Alternative UK. Indra had him on. And I was very impressed with the Murmurations project because it was similar to what we had been talking about with the multi mapping and the kinds of things that you were just pointing to here. But I must say, when I saw what Tim showed us earlier today, I was even more impressed with him. I'd seen his stuff in the summer when he was calling it co-do, and now he's calling it, I think, community circles, and he's gotten some really good both social and resource and market mapping, like the kind of thing that you do, offers and asks. So that would be somebody who's already a co-founder with Living Cities Earth. I think would be really good to connect with you if you haven't come across Tim before.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you, because I know how long you've taken to pull this together, and I really do appreciate the short, sweet thing. I think that investors will too, because I'm sure we're going to have the opportunity to present this to investors. So I just great appreciation for all you've done. Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure there's a few other people on this call who might like to ask you questions. They've turned their cameras on, so that's a good sign.
Hi Yuri, hi Jody, nice to see you.
Yeah, no, I joined a bit late. I was the first presentation today, so and I was the host for the first 3 hours or so. So um, I came maybe when you spoke about yourself, so I was in most of the presentation. And it's interesting. There is a lot of connection to things that I shared, and also I'm part of the practice segment. So we're kind of co-organizing this whole Emergathon as a way, actually. So the purpose of the Emergathon is really that we see each other's solutions and we start to get to know what's in there. And there's different things, like things that were shared today about the flagship program and so on, and that was spoken about. But something that wasn't necessarily spoken about is this idea of a marketplace of solutions. And I'm meeting with Alexei later to talk about that. And I think some of it is how to create a cooperative marketplace. And I've been chatting with my Miss Emergers. I created an AI assistant that I gave her all the Emergathon concept notes. And once this YouTube will finish, I will give her the transcript of everything so I can chat with the whole collective knowledge of that. And so I built in a prompt in which she helps me design like upgrading the marketplace, because we say marketplace as a business model, but actually there's a lot of different business model for marketplaces. Most of them are not collaborative at all. They are more win-lose kind of thing. So I think a marketplace of solutions, especially for something like this, should be. And so I'm thinking about co-affiliation, eco co-affiliation, which means that if, for example, someone comes in and takes kind of mesh work and then chooses to take in a solution from Uri, then automatically Merlin gets part of what's happening. So there is a sort of co-affiliation automatically within the system, which is not dependent on kind of the old school organizing, like who knows who kind of thing. That's still that's the main thing that how things work. I live in Italy, so by the way. But but kind of built in a sort of fair marketplace, let's say, but a true fair marketplace that has this kind of mechanism also of win-win and co-affiliation. So just a thought that I'm putting out there and how it connects with the co-op. And again, maybe the question is like, what's the business model that you've been looking at, if there is such?
There are lots of different elements to the business model. Actually, I can share the document with you after the presentation if you like. I mean, there's just lots. It's a multi-stakeholder cooperative for starters, right? So if there are membership fees, as an example, there's the reselling of the platforms that make up the cooperative, the cooperating system. So as I was saying, the cooperating system is a culmination of lots of different apps, just like Google is a culmination of lots of different apps. But to support specific user journey, which is the user journey that most social enterprises and charities want to go on, and they're currently working in silo and they don't have the technology to achieve that user journey, which might be, as I say, understanding what exists, what resources exist, what strategies exist, and supporting all the way through to ways of coordinated action, actually seeing things getting done on the ground. Most social enterprises and charities, that's what they want to achieve, but they find it incredibly difficult to achieve that. So a whole suite of different apps that will be needed to make that happen. Mapping is one of those things which Ollie may well contribute to. Yeah, and I've lost my thread there. But then something like One Planet would be needed too if there's not a suitable alternative. I'm not aware of any. And obviously, when you sell One Planet to a local authority or to a health board or what have you, there's revenues there. So there's going to be various different commercial companies that are going to create an open API as part of their service, and that will be like a freemium entry point into a premium service in many cases. That's just one element, but I'll share the business plan with you. It is really exciting. Thank you, Yuri. Jody, do you have any questions? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Have to find what. Ah, there we go. Got it. I'm giggling because I've been on since early this morning also, and I live in New York City. And so much of this is like just way over my head. And I knew that going in. I sort of a boots on the ground kind of girl. And I am very interested in thriving urban environments. And I'm also interested in keeping animals in urban environments so people who live in cities will have access to more of the natural world. And so so what I've been trying to do is like listen for where I can fit in, or where I can provide some value. I still don't know what that is, but I clearly have a lot of work to do and thinking about coming to visit some of y'all and see what's happening. And in terms of what you're doing, it's really interesting. The whole AI part of it too is interesting to me, and I'm not afraid of it like a lot of people in my circles are. And I know that we've got to pay attention and just, be clear about what our intentions are, I think, when we're using it. So sorry, I got caught up in the meta and not like specifically what you asked me, but that's where I am.
I think you're absolutely right. AI in most people's consciousness, ultimately AI is just an algorithm, right? It's just a much more complicated algorithm, or fruitful, shall we say, algorithm than what we're used to, and an algorithm that can churn out information that sounds like human dialogue. But at the end of the day, it's still an algorithm. And the opportunity, as I see it, is that through all the information that already exists, through the open data, there's lots and lots of open data around water quality, soil quality, air quality, temperature, all this. It's unlimited. But AI can really get to grips with all of that, and it can understand the health of our community and the health of the globe as a whole. It can grapple with that. It can grapple with the thousands of different solutions that there already are, right? And obviously we can put them into a solutions bank, and then it can make those recommendations at a local level as to what we actually need to implement if we want to sustain the biosphere and to sustain life on Earth. And I think seeing that, so essentially it's like a health app, like we're used to health apps already. They work on a micro level. We're just talking about a health app at a macro level. I think we might be a little bit shocked at the description that the AI churns out when it says, well, this is all the stuff that you're actually going to need to do to survive. But I'd much rather see that prescription than not see it. And like for instance, I know that part of that prescription is going to involve reflecting sunlight. And reflecting sunlight to address the Earth's energy imbalance is not on most people's radar, right? But we're actually going to have to cover a lot of the Earth, not or the land surface, shall we say, in reflective material to be able to buy ourselves time to be able to address the carbon issues and the ecological issues and the biodiversity issues. They're all going to take hundreds of years to regenerate biodiversity and rainforests and carbon sink and all that sort of stuff. So that summarizes. But yeah, AI's got a big role to play, and we should leverage it. Marilyn.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Jody a question before I tell you a little bit that you might also be interested in, Peter. Jody, have you ever belonged to a food co-op? So you know the value of buying through, like
I certainly buy through food co-ops.
Yeah, so you already have really an experience, but it's in a particular sector. So, thinking about an earth co-op, one of the things that I was so attracted with Peter's dream was, you know, when we started to look at the modeling for finance and funding for CE, the, you know, first frames that I saw coming back were so capitalistic. I really had a gut wrench, and I thought, no, this is absolutely not what we want to do. And within a week, Peter's Earth Co-op frame landed on my desk. And since I have worked a little bit with Peter in the past, I knew him, and he had a lot of credibility with me. And I looked at it and I went, oh, this is to do with LCE. This is exactly how we need to integrate the stakeholders. And
Yeah.
when I think about co-ops, so Peter, I love how you talk about the health from a bioregional perspective. We have another co-founder. I was hoping she would come on Emergathon, but she wasn't able to come on. And I have seen her set of slides. It's Sally Bogali with Gaia Education. She actually lives here at the Eco Village in Findhorn in Scotland with me. But Gaia Education is a global organization that connects 4,000 eco villages. It came on the scene and was funded by the same investor as the GEN Group, the Global Eco Village Network. But the story I wanted to tell here is Gaia Ed just received a €6 million grant for soilocracy, for teaching the value of soil, teaching people how to create soil, how to value soil, how to do regenerative soil. Like, that's an example of a application of exactly what we're looking at for the qualities of living cities, living regions, you know, the whole living earth. So those kinds of facts give me great hope. And as Alexei said, you know, and Yuri, that by having the Emergathon, and I shared the name of this with my housemate, who said, the athon part of it is really right. She said, like you, Jody, I've been here since the beginning of the day. But I've learned so much. I'm so glad that I chose.
Yeah.
This is the way, instead of having to play the recording, I'm getting it live. And there hasn't been one session where there hasn't been nuggets to either learn from or connect to, or all those sorts of things. Anyway, that was what I was thinking of. Food Co-op. And Peter, you probably need to connect with Sally Bogali around the soil stuff, because I bet you would be able to make some use of it.
Thanks, Marilyn.